welcome to WION The World is One. I'm Radi Francis and this is the West Asia Post, our weekly show where we bring you all the latest updates from the world's most volatile region. It is a new week and a new location. I'm bringing you our weekly edition from the city of Istanbul in the heart of Turkey. The region I'm standing in is no stranger to the term promised land. It has fueled conflicts for centuries here. But what about the forgotten promise? Israel is building new settlements in the West Bank. An Israeli flight is landing in Riyadh. As the two-state solution looks more and more unlikely every day, what does this mean for the people of Palestine? Let's take a look.
This is the West Bank, a chunk of land located on the west bank of River Jordan. Surrounded by Israel on all sides, it was occupied by Israel in the 1967 war. But Palestinians claim all of the West Bank. They consider it a part of their future independent state. The land that was promised to them, but with every passing day the dream is becoming more and more distant. Israel has advanced plans for new homes here. Almost 3,000 of them. They will be built in 7 settlements, from the suburbs of Jerusalem to new neighborhoods. The Israelis living out here are called settlers. They live in the West Bank, but are citizens of Israel. The settlements enjoy widespread backing among Israelis. Many view them as a religious, national, or strategic necessity. Israel cites historical and biblical links to the region, looking at it as an integral part of the biblical land of Israel. There are around 130 officially recognized settlements, with over 460,000 Israeli settlers residing here. While Israel says these were built on vacant or unused land, Palestinians claim the land is often bought from them using middlemen. Most countries view these settlements as illegal, an obstacle to peace with the Palestinians. So when countries heard about Israel's plan, there was strong condemnation. Israel's biggest ally, the United States, was also not pleased. It opposed the move, saying it damages prospects for a two-state solution.
We're concerned about the publication of tenders on Sunday for 1,300 settlement units, in a number of West Bank settlements. We strongly oppose the expansion of settlements, which is completely inconsistent with efforts to lower tensions and to ensure calm, and it damages the prospects for a two-state solution.
But Israel is not just stopping here. The new settlements are just one flashpoint. The other is labeling Palestinian groups as terror organizations. The new designations have cast a shadow, especially on the future of the Abraham Accords. Last year, Israel made new friends, and Arab ones at that. The United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. Normalization was the word on the streets. With the peace deals being billed as a game changer, a year later, the economic benefits have come quickly. But the Abraham Accords came with the promise of peace. For years, West Asian consensus was that any normalization must be preceded by an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal. The Abraham Accords took that formula and turned it around, but the recent actions could even leave its new friends wary. The Arab world has always battled for the Palestinian cause, but the normalizations put that in jeopardy. So the nation that jumped in to take advantage was Iran. Supreme Leader Khamenei is urging Arab states to reverse the deals, calling it an act against Muslim unity in the region.
Some governments have unfortunately made errors, have made big errors and have sinned in normalizing their relations with the usurping and oppressive Zionist regime. It is an act against Islamic unity. They must return from this path and make up for this big mistake.
For now, all eyes remain on Iran's biggest foe, Saudi Arabia. Earlier, a fight from Israel landed in Riyadh. This is the latest in a series of indications on how the Jewish state and the Islamic kingdom are silently but steadily formalizing their relations. For years, Saudi Arabia has settled on one position. Settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a precondition for normalizing ties. This is a stance that carries great weight in the Arab world, but over the years, the kingdom's position has seen a shift. A shift spearheaded by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The Israeli move could, however, be his biggest test so far, and Saudi Arabia seems to be in no hurry. The two-state solution was first suggested in 1917. The United Nations endorsed it in 1947, and again in 1974. More than 100 years later, Israel is a state. Palestine is not. West Asia could witness more peace deals, but the question remains: have the Arab world forgotten Palestine? West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
Iran is batting for Palestine, but what about its own conflict with Israel? Nuclear talks are set to restart soon, while the two remain on the brink of a war. We tell you more.
Iran and Israel started out as allies, enjoying a good relationship for almost 30 years. But in West Asia, friendships don't last too long. The two nations are the perfect example. From close allies, they turned into arch enemies.
And here's what we got. 55,000 pages.
Fighting a clandestine war across West Asia.
Another 55,000 files.
But in the last few months, things have escalated. The shadow war has taken a dangerous turn. Tit-for-tat attacks are on the rise. The protagonists are playing with fire. Iran usually has an asymmetric advantage, but with Israel they have been outboxed. Reports suggest that Israel is apparently setting aside funds for attacking Iran. Around $1.5 billion. Israel plans to spend this money on new weapons. Modern jets, intelligence-gathering drones, and other artillery.
If a terror regime is going to acquire a nuclear weapon, we must act. We must make clear that the civilized world won't allow it. If the Iranians don't believe the world is serious about stopping them, they'll race to the bomb. Israel reserves the right to act at any given moment in any way. That is not only our right, it is also our responsibility.
Iran has obviously not stayed quiet. They promised, quote-unquote, a shocking response, threatening massive damage worth trillions of dollars. In the center of it all is the nuclear deal. When Joe Biden entered the White House, what he encountered were the remnants of a failed deal. A deal he had helped clinch 5 years back. Iran was hopeful. Biden said he was willing to talk. He promised to rejoin the deal if Iran returned to compliance. Both sides want a deal. Getting there remains the tough part. The talks have been on hold since the change of regime. President Raisi wants result-oriented talks. He says the United States must remove the sanctions before Tehran returns to the table.
I personally believe that if Mr. Biden is serious to return to the JCPOA, then he should show this so that we can believe that the Americans are actually serious about lifting sanctions.
This time, the talks will resume in November. But the US remains skeptical about it. Washington says they are committed to diplomacy, but they leave the decision up to the negotiators.
I know they've made similar comments over the last several days or week, I should say. Our commitment remains pursuing a diplomatic path forward. I would leave it to the negotiators to determine when the next round of discussions will be. Our framing continues to be compliance for compliance, and we'll leave it up to the Europeans and our negotiators to determine when the next step would be.
So, that's where things stand now. There is tacit goodwill on both sides. America and Iran want to seal the deal, but it's rarely as easy with the baggage of decades-old mistrust and hatred. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
From Turkey to climate change, we have a lot more lined up for this edition of the West Asia Post. But first, as usual, let's take a look at what else is making the headlines across West Asia.
The Saudi coalition has said that 105 rebels were killed in the latest Yemen strikes. This comes as Houthi rebels clash with the Saudi government forces in a bid to capture the last government bastion of Marib. Lebanon's politician Jaja failed to turn up for a hearing over the clashes in Beirut. Supporters of the Christian Lebanese Forces Party blocked roads to his residence as Jaja denied all the claims. The United States Treasury has imposed sanctions on 2 top Lebanese contractors and a lawmaker close to the Hezbollah movement. This is over alleged large-scale corruption that undermines the rule of law in Lebanon. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson welcomed Jordan's King Abdullah II to number 10 Downing Street, as the UK leader hosted him for bilateral talks ahead of the G20 summit in Rome. Saudi Arabia's annual Cornerstone Investment Forum has drawn over 1,000 participants, with big-name US financiers and business leaders returning back to the kingdom. Qatar's ruling Emir has warned the Gulf state against excessive tribalism, proposing a plan to promote equal citizenship through changes. He also urged Qataris to show openness and tolerance when Doha hosts the Football World Cup next year.
Turkey and the West have climbed down from a full-blown diplomatic crisis. Standing here, I can tell you that things are a little less tense right now. Foreign embassies said that they abide by the diplomatic conventions on non-interference, thus averting the threatened expulsion of 10 ambassadors. We tell you more.
Yatıyorlar, kalkıyorlar. Kavala, 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 kavala.
Erdogan is taking on the West. Earlier this week, the Turkish president wanted to evict the ambassadors of 10 countries, all belonging to the West. At first, he summoned his foreign minister. He ordered the ambassadors to be declared persona non grata. This means these diplomats are undesirable in Turkey, indicating that they must leave. The announcement was rather dramatic.
Burada kalkıp da Dışişleri Bakanlığı'na gelip
You cannot dare to come to the Turkish Foreign Ministry and give these orders. I gave the necessary order to our foreign minister and said what must be done. These 10 ambassadors must be declared persona non grata at once. You will sort it out immediately.
They included ambassadors from countries like Canada, Denmark, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Finland, New Zealand, and the United States. Basically, the West. On the list are 7 NATO allies, 4 G7 countries, members of the EU, a bloc Turkey wants to join. These are powerful countries, and Erdogan has decided to pick a fight with them.
We used to
import and distribute.
The trigger here was this man, Osman Kavala, a 65-year-old businessman jailed 4 years ago. Kavala was accused of trying to overthrow Erdogan. These 10 ambassadors had called for his release. The demand did not go down well with the president, so he ordered them out. But while Erdogan tried to take on the West, his economy did not seem to agree with the move. The lira nosedived after the announcement, spooking investors in the country. The defiance lasted for some time, but soon Erdogan realized this wasn't practical. Erdogan told the world that the ambassadors had stepped back. He even said they would be more careful in the future.
Taahhüdüne bağlılıklarını ifade eden
I believe these ambassadors who stated their commitments to Article 41 of the Vienna Convention, or to not interfere in the internal affairs of a country, will be more careful in their statements regarding Turkey's sovereign rights. I would also like to state that anybody who does not respect our country's sensitivities and its independence, no matter what their country's position is, cannot stay in our country.
This was Erdogan's deepest rift with the West in 19 years. He is playing the nationalism card by attacking them. But with the economy tanking and prices rising, it doesn't look like it is working for the Turkish leader. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One. World leaders are set to gather in Glasgow for COP26. On the agenda is climate action and goals for the world. This is especially crucial for this region, as it runs out of water and more areas become inhabitable. But West Asia needs to lead its own climate agenda.
Blistering heat waves, bone-dry conditions, generational droughts, shrinking forests and polluted waters. This is the reality of West Asia. A land that is no stranger to conflict, but seldom with nature. For years, wars were waged here for stability. But soon, this stability will depend on one thing: how well the region tackles climate change. Shortages could soon foster insurgency. Countries may battle each other for scarce resources, exacerbating conflict in the region. Tehran is suffering from its worst drought in 50 years. There has been a 97% drop in monthly rainfall as compared to last year. Groundwater here is at critical levels, and dams are running at a third of their capacity. Iran's Khuzestan province has long been a hotbed of instability. In 1979, segments of the population led a push for autonomy. With unrest rocking Khuzestan once again this year, the province appears to be emerging as another major flashpoint. A picture of West Asia's ongoing struggles with water scarcity. Highlighting the increasing hazards of climate change. For neighboring Iraq, the climate crisis is the next big threat. Iraq blames Iran for the drastic decline in river flow. The drop was attributed to low precipitation and the building of more dams in Iran which retain water. Its farmers and livestock herders are battling severe water shortages. Shortages are killing their animals, fields, and way of life. The oil-rich country is one of the world's most vulnerable to climate change, struggling with a host of other environmental challenges.
Several regions, including residential, agricultural areas and fields, depend on the Darbandi Khan Dam. From Darbandi Khan to the Garmiyan region and the Diyala Basin, which has irrigation and agricultural projects.
However, some are slowly waking up to this reality. Saudi Arabia is the biggest example. Crown Prince MBS has launched a Middle East Green Initiative. The aim is to invest over $10 billion to reduce carbon emissions in the region and protect the environment. Riyadh will establish a regional carbon capture center, a regional early storm warning center, and a regional cloud seeding program. The pledge is that Saudi Arabia will reach net zero emissions by 2060.
The kingdom announces that it will establish a cooperative platform to implement the concepts of circular carbon economy, establish a regional hub for climate change, develop a regional center for carbon capture, utilization and storage, a regional center for early warning of storms, a regional center for sustainable development of fisheries, and a regional cloud seeding program.
In the center is the construction of NEOM. The Crown Prince's dream city boasts of sustainability, an eco-city with zero cars and zero carbon emissions. A tall claim for a region that thrives on oil. West Asia and conflicts go a long way. Humanitarian crises here are the priority, but urgent issues can often eclipse a looming crisis. Currently, the region is distracted, blind to the long-term threat of climate change. But ignoring it will not make the climate crisis go away. With crucial resources running low, climate change will have to be higher up on the agenda. West Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
What is it like living on the front lines? What is it like to have a makeshift border passing through your house? This is what life is like for residents in northern Syrian city of At-Tadif. We take an exclusive look at what life is like there after a decade of war.
Khalil Ibrahim has a house in northern Syria, but he ends up living a few blocks away from it. Passing through the middle of his house is a border, making it impossible for him to reach his front door.
أنا ساكن ببيت واحد من أصدقائي. بيتي بيبعد عني تقريبا شي 300 متر.
I currently live in a friend's house only 300 to 350 meters away from my own home. It's just past the mosque over there. We have been displaced since late 2015. We have no place to go. I live on the front line because I can no longer pay expensive rent.
In this frontline town of Syria, residents are stuck between rivals. On one side is the Assad regime. On the other are the rebels. Tadif is located about 32 kilometers from Aleppo, but is controlled by a patchwork of rival forces. Ibrahim escaped the town in 2015. This was months after it fell to the Islamic State. But he returned 4 years later. But not everyone is like Ibrahim. Residents are yet to return to their homes. This is the only town in the war-torn nation where the regime and rebels coexist in relative peace. But the streets of Tadif still bear evidence of the battles. At its northern entrance are bullet-riddled IS billboards. They loom over devastated streets and bombed-out buildings.
The front line with the regime is about 300 meters away. People return because of poverty, high rent, lack of money, lack of work. They chose to return and live in danger so that they could get shelter in a home with rooms and a roof instead of a tent.
At the front line, sandbags and large stones form a makeshift border. The regime-run side is inhabited exclusively by Syrian soldiers. The rebel-run pocket is home to many Tarif natives, as well as rebel fighters and their families. Public services there are non-existent, leaving many without power. Children here have made a playground of bombed-out homes. Some sit on the remains of a destroyed roof. Others run and jump over the rubble of a nearby building. There are no schools in the town, so they take lessons at a local mosque. Boys and girls are given separate lessons to avoid intermixing. It is a life like no other in this frontline town, but residents seem to have made their peace with it. They say it is better than life in the camps, but one that is not without fear. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, bringing you more stories from the world's most volatile region. Until then, stay safe. I'm Redi Francis coming to you from Istanbul, and you're watching WION, World is One.